Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the dojo, and you know it's the John the Ninja Studios. And I gotta tell you, ooh, Jersey pride is running through my veins right now. And the person I'm with right now, I have to say I'm immensely jealous of. I've looked up to him, and mainly the biggest thing I think he's got on me is he saw AC/DC with Bon Scott. But that's neither here nor there. The thing I love about this guy is I grew up watching him on that metal show. And little did I know at the time, not only that I would meet him, but he was a Jersey local and he's worked with everybody you can think of. He's done it all. The accolades when I was trying to do this intro just couldn't flow easily because he literally has a career that has just spanned not only decades, but he's worked with all these great names. Some of them include one of my personal favorites, Patrice O'Neal, Jim Nortan, Sarah Silverman, Andrew the Dice Man Clay, and so on. He's been on George Lopez Tonight. He's been on Jimmy Kimmel. He technically performed at Woodstock 94. Remember that. But having his own work, doing stuff with Howard Stern, having his own show where he played special ed on the Crank Yankers. Hell, he even has an Emmy. You know why? Because he was smoking weed and throwing a football with Dan Marino on the inside the NFL. And when I say not only that this man is a great, great lover of good music, but he's also a great comic. The man I have with me is Jim Florentine, and I'm just gonna hop into it because I love this guy. Good sir, how you doing?
How's it going, man? That's quite an introduction. I'm like, wow, I forgot I did that stuff, or I was friends with those guys.
Man, it's so many people you've been around. And again, another jealous thing, meeting Eminem, man. I don't care if you're in contact with him or not. You got to meet one of the greatest artists, not just rapper, one of the greatest artists of all time. But we'll get on to those matters. But first things first, man, I can't tell you how cool it was to see you and Don and all the guys at Quiet Riot at the Landis Theater, which you are going to be performing at this Saturday. I'm excited for that show, man. So with that, you're still a Jersey local. And I'm like, at this point, Jersey's not the best place to live. You know our taxes are crazy, health insurance is crazy. What is it about Jersey? You're still here, man.
I don't know. I just grew up in Jersey. I like it. All my family's here. I got 7 brothers and sisters, 13 nieces and nephews, and my son's 11 years old, so he's a part of the community now. And it's like he's got a ton of friends. So I'm stuck here till at least I'm 8. At least he's 18, another 7 years. But I don't know. I just kind of like it. I always thought maybe I'd move to California or Florida or something. Maybe Florida down the line. But I still just love it here. I just like the characters. I still got friends since like first grade that I hang out with, that I've known since first grade. So I just like that Jersey, we're a bunch of dicks. We're like lovable dicks. And I like that.
We're cruel. That's the best way to say it. If you're not being cruel to somebody, you're not showing your love.
But we mean it in a nice way. Like if we pick on you, that means we like you. You know what I mean? We're like I said, we're lovable dicks. We're dicks, but okay, I get it. I get where he's coming from. I like hanging around with those kind of people.
So I want to dive back into your family. I know you've mentioned them before, their influence, especially your brothers, but speaking with your brother, he was at the show. I won't relay his name, but I was truly in awe of not just the information he was giving me, but just the general wisdom. My man was just jumping from one thing to another. We talked about business, then real estate, then his life aside from yours. And I'm just like, if I'm a parent, I'm proud of all my kids. When I was growing up watching you on that metal show, there'd be jokes like, yeah, I'm the dirt bag of the family or something like that. But if I was your father, I'd be like, damn, I'm mightily proud of all these kids, especially you. So can we walk back? I know your father was a suit, but what was his character like? And what did you grab from him that you feel you yourself have as an adult or as a father?
Well, he was an accountant. He was a CEO of a company down in Bradstreet. So, he was more of he was real book smart and everything else, raised 7 kids, was our coach in baseball, little league and football and all that stuff. So made a lot of time for us, went on a bunch of vacations, but he wanted me to go to college to be an accountant because that's basically what he was. I went one semester to like a community college. I hated it. I was like, this isn't for me. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm not good at numbers and sitting there and figuring stuff out. I go, there was a community college near me where it had a communications program with like radio, TV, acting. I said, that's where I want to go. He's like, okay, if that's where you want to go, if that's what you want to do. So after the first semester, I went there and I loved it. I always hated school, but then I was taking these TV production classes, making little movies, doing radio. I was on the college radio station, taking acting class. So I'm like, and that's where I really excelled. And then once I started doing comedy, he was 100% in. He's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it. If that's what you really want. So both of my parents are really supportive of that, which meant a lot because there's a ton of, you talk to comics, their parents are like, you got to be kidding me. You're going to go into stand-up comedy. You don't make any money for a long time, if any. You never know if you're going to make it. So, but they were totally supportive, which was great.
And another thing that I found interesting, because you always said you were shy, at least of public speaking. But when I look at the stories, and a lot of people might not know the prank side of you, just you got bored and you would F with anybody. Say as you please, say whatever you want. But some of these pranks were brutal, man. The one phone call where you had your friend call his mom and ask him how big her tits were. I'm like, golly, like, it was funny, but it was also like, it seemed you were fearless. Like there was another story where you saw your grades were bad, and every kid back then would cheat, but you would take the report card before the parents get it. No, you were in the classroom, walked up, was like, oh, I don't see anything here. Let me put an 89, 91, teacher still out the room, and give me a C right here. All right, cool. So it seemed there was always a factor of fearlessness.
It was 10th grade geometry. I'm like, no, but who cares about geometry? You never use that later on in life. I knew that early on, algebra, geometry. I'm like, this isn't for me. So yeah, I missed a few tests because I wouldn't show up for class that day because I knew I was going to fail. And one day the teacher had the book open on the desk. She goes, hey, if you want to walk by my book and look at your grades, you can. Which is weird. And she must have left the room. I can't remember, but I remember there was a pen there. And I saw there was like 3 empty slots where I didn't take the test. And eventually I had to take them. I had to make them up before the end of the markup period. I just put 86, 88, 91 and just filled them in. I don't know how I didn't get caught. I don't know. No one saw me do it. I can't remember. I just remember I filled them in. I'm like, good. Now I passed this course barely. With a C grades or whatever. But I just knew, I knew early on, this stuff doesn't mean anything. This is not going to help me later on in life. So, especially with that math stuff, the algebra and geometry. So yeah, I was bored growing up in the suburbs. I was in Catholic school most of my school years. And we're just looking for trouble. We were bored. We didn't have phones. We didn't have any of that stuff. So we just go out after school and hang out till like 6, 7 o'clock and just, hang in the woods, smoke cigarettes, drink beer, and stuff like that, light fireworks off.
And again, back to the crazy stories, because you guys got lucky with a lot of that, especially excluding the almost drowning and the TV falling on your head and etc. But it always fascinates me. I love hearing the stories because I went to a Christian school. My dad was atheist. My mom's Christian. And I've always had both worldviews, but I've seen kids really struggle with everything I do is a sin. Oh my God, I'm going to hell. And, I cussed. So where was that transition to where you finally said, I'm okay. It's okay to live this style and not feel so much regret? Like I remember one of my friends lost his virginity, end of the world. And then he did it again. And he's like, now he's okay. That was like the only thing that was in the way. So how did you come to grips with reality? And you were like, you know what? If there's a God or not, I'm okay. It's fine. I'm not the worst person.
Yeah, it was probably maybe around 20, 21 where, I didn't have sex till I was almost 18. I didn't masturbate till I was 21 because I really thought I was going to go to hell. And I remember having sex the second time. And I remember I had a cross on him. I shoved it in the back of my sneaker because I didn't want to wear it when I was having sex. So I was like, oh man, I know this is wrong. And then the masturbation thing is I was like, oh man, the next day I felt like the biggest loser. I can't believe I did that. I'm disgusted at myself. And then I was like, I think at that point, maybe a week later after that, I go, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? I can't feel guilty the rest of my life. So I'm just like, whatever, just try to be a good person. And I'm going to do this stuff on the side. I didn't have any willpower at the time. So I'm like, whatever, I'll deal with it later on in life. My mom used to always yell at me, especially if I didn't go to church every Sunday. She's like, listen, God's going to remember that. I go, is he really going to remember that I missed one Sunday, a mass, 8 years ago? Come on, it's like, okay, whatever you think.
But that support is so great though, even though, a lot of other parents would have been really like, you're going, there would be punishment straight. But to quote Joey Diaz, after that, you became a fucking savage. Man, your stories are so great. I'm not going to mention them, but you guys, you get down, y'all soldiers. So here we are. we're skipping a bit, but your brothers introduced you to rock. Your first concert, again, another monumentous one. Sabbath, Van Halen, New York. I'm like, damn. But it's the fact you were able to meet these iconic rock stars, not only in Florida but back in Jersey. You knew Johnny Z. Like, does it ever dawn on you that was kind of a foreshadowing? Because you actually had Randy speak to you. I know that's not much to certain people, but Randy Rhodes speaking to you. You know Rudy Sarzo. You guys chatted, and you guys are still friends over 40 years later. It is great. And I think the biggest one that was really like mind blowing to me was taking Metallica out. Just hanging out with the guys, with Dave still in the band before it all exploded. Did you feel there was a predestination on that, a destiny part, or were you just kind of like, you know what, that's life, it's a small world and these things happen?
No, I just think there was that me and my friends, that's what we're into. We're into heavy metal, and in the town I grew up in, Old Bridge, New Jersey, that's where like Johnny Z from Megaforce Record had a little record shop in a flea market, and we go there every Friday night after we got paid with our paychecks, and we'd sit in the store all, and listen to, we put these import albums on. Oh, listen to this. We're going to listen to this band. Listen to Accept and Raven, and then you get the Metallica No Life to Leather cassette. He's like, this band. He goes, this band's gonna be huge one day. I'm gonna manage them. I'm gonna bring them to the East Coast. They're gonna do some shows here. We're gonna record an album and stuff. So we're like, oh, cool. We had no idea, that this scene was that big. And then meeting Ozzy. Ozzy used to always do all these record store appearances to promote his album. So whatever town he was in, a lot of times the whole band would be there. So he was in New York City. I met, the whole band was there signing. I still got pictures from that day. Then I wound up seeing them, in Florida. They played 2 nights at this place called the Sunrise Musical Theater. It was like a mile from my house. So I went both days, and I got there like 2 PM. I walked there to the gig. I'm like, I got nothing going on. Ozzy's a mile from my house. I'm just going to hang outside the venue and just wait. And then Randy pulled up in a cab. I talked to him. I was like, Randy, I was at the show last night. He's like, oh, cool. Yeah, he goes, I thought I was a little off. I go, no, the show was great. He goes, yeah. I go, I'm coming tonight. I'm going to see you guys 3 nights in a row. Then Rudy comes out of a cab. I talked to him, Tommy, to Ozzy, all that stuff. I tried to sneak in the venue. I couldn't get in. I think they busted me. I was trying to, I forget how I tried to sneak in, but I didn't get in. But yeah, I had no idea. Then I had Ozzy was doing a record store appearance. I had him sign my knuckles, Ozzy on my knuckles in black magic marker. I didn't wash my hand for like 3 weeks. I put a plastic bag around in the shower. And I walked around Catholic high school in Florida with Ozzy on my knuckles, and people didn't even know who Ozzy was. I went to some rich, like snooty Catholic high school where all these rich kids, and they were like, look, what a weirdo this guy is. But I'm like, I can't believe I got Ozzy on my knuckles.
I always wonder why you didn't get a tattoo of that. I don't know if your parents would have kicked you out, but I'm like, yo, I gotta cement this or something.
Yeah, tattoos really weren't in at the time. Yeah, when I was a kid, they weren't. Rarely anyone had a. Ozzy had a few, obviously, and Ozzy on his knuckles, but I wasn't going to go to that extreme.
Okay.
Yeah, it would look stupid now. Even though I still love Ozzy and he's huge influence in my life, I was walking around with Ozzy on my knuckles.
I truly sympathize with the moment where you were trying to give him your watch, like you, and the other time I think it was Accept. I can't remember which band specifically, but you guys were hanging out with them. It might have been the Scorpions in that band, and you and your brother, you guys got invited to the hotel room to drink with them, and you're in the elevator, and you say something stupid like, hey, you guys got elevators in Europe?
It was Saxon. Saxon. Yeah.
But you're so excited to be around these guys and in their presence, and it feels like you're one. I was curious, has there ever been a moment you were with somebody that was of that high caliber to you, somebody that really was like, damn, they're awesome, and you said the right thing? Like I remember on that metal show, you did a quick whip, and you got Tony Iommi to crack a smile. So was there any time where you had a situation, you were somebody famous, you said something and they laughed and you're like, got it? Or like when you were on Stern and you said something and he cracked? Well, what's a moment that you remember? It's like, damn, I did it right.
Yeah, well, I remember the Stern show the first time I was on. I was sitting in for the day and he's like, hey, whatever. And then he was talking about something about him and his wife or his girlfriend at the time walking on the beach, and they saved like a bird. And they picked up the bird and they brought it back and they saved it or something like that. He goes, it was a real romantic walk on the beach. And the first thing I said on mic, I go, Howard, you should check your pants for a penis. And he started laughing. And then he had to go to commercial break right after. He goes, that was great. He goes, you sound great on the air. That was really funny. I made him laugh. like the first 5 minutes of the show. And I was like, that was a big icebreaker for me. I was like so nervous going in. But no, I've said a lot of stupid things to the Saxon guys. I just had another one I was just thinking of. Oh, this was recently. This was maybe like 5 years ago. We go see the Black Sabbath reunion in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, me and Jim Nortan. And Jim Norton's like really good friends with Ozzy. Like he has his phone number, they text and stuff like that. And me and Jim Nortan bonded when we first started doing comedy back in the early 90s because we liked Ozzy. And that's all we talked about, how much we liked Ozzy. So Jim's like, pretty good friends with him. So we go backstage after the show. It was a great show. We're talking to Ozzy. We're in his dressing room. It was just me, Jim, and Ozzy and a security guy. And I drove there. Jim actually drove in the car from New York City to Brooklyn in the town car with Ozzy. I'm like, that's unbelievable. I drove and I parked my car in the street coming from Jersey. So after the show, we're hanging, we're talking and stuff. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to get out of here. We got to go. And Ozzy's like, you need a ride back? You need a ride back to the city? And I go, no, I'm good. I got my car. He's like, you sure? I'll give you a ride. We'll go. Jim's going with me. I go, no, I got my car in the street. I'll be fine. He goes, okay, no problem. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming. And I'm walking in the venue. I go, why wouldn't I take the ride in the car with Ozzy? And then I would just go back to Brooklyn and go get my car. All I got to do is take a subway or an Uber. It's only like, a 10, 15-minute ride. Like, why wouldn't I want to be in the town car with Ozzy pulling out of the venue? Even then, that was 5 years ago. That was just so stupid. Even Jim Nortan later, he's like, yeah, why wouldn't you take the ride? What is wrong with you? Like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking. He's a freaking idiot.
You just don't want to impose yourself on them, man.
No, really, I should have said, yeah, I'll go. Yeah, sure, I can go back. Yeah, that'd be great. Then I'll have to take the subway. That's what I should have said. And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, he's the one who invited me. I didn't say, hey, can I get a ride too?
So speaking of rock stars then, like who are you still close with? Like, when we have these interactions, you meet up with guys, you keep in touch, but there's a few guys like you really just, it hits home, you're connecting. Who are some rock stars or even comedians that, not saying so much their status in society, like, oh, they're famous, they're bitching, but I'm talking about somebody on the same level where, you guys connect, you hit them up every now and again, you're still really close after like a once in a lifetime encounter from that metal show or a comic show or a concert.
Well, Jim Nortan, I'm still really good friends with. We just went to lunch the other day. He was playing around in my area doing local shows. I went on and did a little guest, comedy set before him and hung out with him next day and went to lunch. So I'm still friends with him. But as far as rock stars, Cory Taylor from Slipknot, Stone Sour.
Awesome.
We'll text and stuff here and there. He was really nice to my son. My son's a big fan. Lizzy, Hale, and Joe from Hailstorm. They came to one of my shows in Nashville a couple of months ago. I'm still friends with them, and I'm trying to think who else. Rudy Sarzo, obviously.
Absolutely.
I don't know, but as comics, I'm friends with a lot of guys. Bill Burr. We still text back and forth. He helped promote my last comedy special. Guys like that. I'm friend. It's just with Louis J. Gomez and all those guys, the Skanks, Legion of Skanks, and I go, do Skank Fest every year. So, I don't really care. Like, I'm not into the whole, oh my God, I've hung out with rock stars before and big time comedians. It's like, it's fun, but it's like, that's not my life. I got to go back. The next day I can hang out with Ozzy and be at a Black Sabbath listening party. Next day I got to cut my lawn. So I'm always grounded like that. I'm like, whatever. It's fun when you're hanging with them, but it's like, that's not I would have moved to LA and just would have kissed ass if I really wanted that lifestyle. Speaking of, you mentioned Eminem before. Yeah. I hung with them, went to dinner. We did the music awards together. I recorded a couple, some prank calls with them in the studio. But it was cool at the time. This is a nice memory, but what are you going to do? I gotta make my kids lunch in the morning, get them on the school bus.
You were doing the gig at the radio station. You were doing strip clubs every now and again. You ended up meeting Don and then another connection, and then just everything spiraled out. And it was just one thing after another. But I really feel the thing that really got you by was the comedy. And your influences range from even Dee Snider, from just how he would rag on people, because a lot of people didn't see the documentary and see how big they were when they were trying to make it. Richard Pryor, you mentioned Dice Man, Kinnison. They brought the rock star aspect to comedy. I was curious when you finally got the courage to go up on stage. I think it was Dangerfields. I forgot Ronnie Danger is also another influence. what was your approach? Like when I look at comedy, I've done it one time. It was at a Christian college, did not go well. Told those jokes to other people out in public, they were dying. So you do have to know your audience, but you have to know what type of person you are to get that laugh. So what was your approach when you said, okay, well, you know what, I'm an asshole, so let me be a dick towards people, or let me rag back and forth. I'm really quick, or the writing process where you sit, let me sit down and try and write something. What jokes have I said in the past? How did that start?
Doing like morning radio and not being able to, I was doing like a morning show on this local New Jersey station. It was only like 100 watts, but I was the morning guy from 6 to 10. And I would try to crack a joke like every, 10 minutes when I could talk, a quick one line or something, whatever was in the news. And they're like, no, you can't say that. You don't want to offend somebody. But it wasn't like an offensive joke. I wasn't trying to be Howard Stern. I was just throwing in a stupid line. Like, no, just stick with the news and the weather and, and the time. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do this. I want to have at least some kind of personality. So then I go, I'm going to try to do stand-up. It still took me like a year to go on, actually get up on the balls to get up on stage. I started writing and stuff. And then eventually I went to an amateur night. It wasn't at Dangerfields. That was like my first big gig.
Okay.
But, I just went to a local open mic night. I didn't get any laughs with my material because it was terrible. But some guy said something in the crowd. I said something back. And I got a big laugh. And I was like, wow, I just felt that adrenaline. Like, that felt amazing. And then I just started going from there. I'm like, this is what I want to do. Just that one jolt I got from that laugh.
And that set you down the spiral. Bob Levy picked you up. And he's a wild cat, and I'm sitting here thinking of like really outlandish stuff he would do on stage. And that kind of gives you an open view, like, hey, you know what? I could pretty much almost get away with anything. Of course, it's back in the day, this late 80s at this point, 90s. What was the biggest lesson you learned under him? Or even when Dice picked you up, when you met Andrew Dice Clay and you guys actually became friends, everybody knows you guys are still close, which is another thing. Like, there's another idol of yours, you're hanging out with him all the time. What is a lesson that was pivotal at the time that maybe everybody knows now? Or, all the comics say like, hey, you know this, but back in the day, it was trial by fire to learn.
Well, Bob Levy was already a headliner, headlining these rooms. When I first started, I met him. He took a liking to me, and he took me on the road to open for him. Me and Jim Nortan, he would take, making like $25 or $50 to do a show. But just watching him on stage kill every night, no matter what the circumstances, just knew how to take over a room. Just watching him every night was amazing. I learned so much. And then, when I meet Dice later, I'm kind of established. I know what I'm doing up there, but just that was a whole other level, doing, theaters in front of his crowd, which in the beginning, they were still kind of young and they were animals. They've calmed down now. They're an older crowd, so they're not crazy and heckling and just want to see Dice. But that was an experience too, to just handle a big crowd like that, where they don't know you, they don't care, and they just want to see Dice. So that helped me on later tours, opening for Artie Lang and all the Stern, those crazy Stern crowds, and then touring with bands and opening, doing comedy at arenas and opening for like Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax. So that really helped me, just opening for Dice and knowing how to deal with those crowds.
And that the Slayer, Anthrax, I think it was Megadeth too, that whole tour where the Slayer fans are just gonna every night, man. I can't imagine it. Even though you get paid good, every night Slayer fans just coming at you. I remember the only time I went to a Slayer show and they were calm, it was Suicidal Tendencies opening with them and Children of Bodom. With that said, your newest special, Bite the Bullet, is out now. You said it took about 2 years to get right. And after seeing it, I was like, he just makes it seem so flawless. The transitions, the thoughts, and everything. I get why it took the time to craft it that way, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, all these jokes are so well crafted. Which one was the hardest for him to get? There's that one joke, it's a good concept, but when it comes out, it just never really goes. I was wondering, like, out of that special, if you can remember, which one was like, damn, if I could just get this right, and then you finally got the laugh for it, and it's like, okay, we got it.
That's why it takes 2 years, like I could listen to old sets when I first started doing that stuff. You just got to keep doing it and doing the joke, and then you change it and you'll listen back like that's missing something. And you might ad lib a line one night on stage. You go, oh man, that's perfect. That will fit in perfect. It just comes off the top of your head, just the adrenaline for you getting from the crowd if they're on your side. will really help you. And then you just, you build a set. It's almost like a band putting an album together. They got to piece it together one by one and slowly just put it together until it's ready. So, and I always try to kind of do segues so it's easier for me to remember where I am in my show so I don't miss out on any material. Because a lot of times a comic will come off stage and go, oh man, he'll do great. And they go, oh, I forgot that one joke, or I forgot those 2 jokes I was supposed to do. We always do that. So I always try to have seamless segues. So it just looks like everything's it's just easier for me to remember that way, from where I'm going from one thing to another. Because sometimes you're up there and your mind goes blank, or you forget where you were and you forget a whole chunk of material because you're in the moment.
You ever just rag off on a tour? Because of course, you want some material that's ready to go and whatnot. But what I've seen a lot of comics, they'll go to an open mic and then try out the new stuff. Have you ever had the guts to just go out on a regular tour and then just try stuff that's never been done before?
Definitely, I do that a lot. That's where I mostly do my stuff. I do it early in the set, like within the first 5 to 8 minutes or whatever, because what I felt, if you try like a whole hunk of new material later in your set, it can't follow the stuff that's honed and that really works, that the crowd's gonna like. So the crowd can almost sense that it's new and like, wait a minute, that just doesn't. They can almost sense that it's not honed or whatever. So I just do it up early in my set before I get into my other stuff to see if it works or not. So. But no, I like doing that. I love experimenting on stage and see if it works or not, and just, trying different words. And I always, like I said, I always record all my shows too, to make sure, and then listen back if I need to. If oh man, I said something, I gotta listen back to that and maybe add that in.
And the one thing I liked about this was it said on the website it was crowdfunded. That last special, you released it free, but that is quality video, quality audio. So that means you have a really great fan base. Something you said that really threw me off, because you do have podcasts. You work with Barstool Sports, Metal Midgets. If you don't know it, people go check it out right now. It's hilarious. It's stories of him growing up, concerts, working, landscaping's a pain in the ass. You said something that threw me off. You said that when you tried getting people on the show to interview them, those views weren't as high as when you're just on by yourself ragging and talking. Why do you think that is? Because you would assume, even though, hey, I'm great, if it's me and somebody else that's great too, that's double the greatness. Your interview with David Lee Roth not only got you all this acclamation, but you're asking really good questions. It's like, hey man, that's a great one. That's really huge. So why do you think your fan group rather just have you than a guest?
My first, I think I started in 2011. My first guest was actually Rudy Sarzo. But then when I started riffing and just ranting about stupid stuff on social media, people really liked that. And then I would go on Howard Stern, I'd go on Opie and Anthony, and these radio shows, and just rant about fantasy football or Applebee's or something like that. And people really took a liking to it. So I started gearing my podcast more towards that, just ranting about stupid stuff that I didn't like. And people would send in stuff, look at this Facebook post, how pathetic this is. And I would just, make fun of it. And then when I would go, well, let me have Metallica on when they had their movie come out, Through the Never. Or let me have this Corey Taylor, because he's got a new Stone Sour out. And people are like, dude, go back to the ranting, because it wasn't necessarily heavy metal fans that liked my podcast. It was more comedy fans. So I got a split audience. All of a sudden they're like, I don't know who Corey Taylor is, or yeah, I kind of know Slipknot. He has a side band. I don't care about this. So then I get the feedback back, like, dude, go back to ranting. We don't want to hear the interviews. I've had Judas Priest on, David Lee Roth, Corey Taylor, Metallica, but so I just said, all right, it's just me ranting. And then I do a radio show for Sirius XM on Ozzy's Boneyard. So that's when I'll have a guy co-host with me, like a Ted Nugent or a David Lee Roth I've had before, and Joe Perry from Aerosmith. So that's where I'll do that rock stuff over there.
How long does it take you to do the set list? Because when I was at the radio station in college, I did all the set lists, and I used to do a 3-hour, 4-hour show. And usually the beginning was, what's the new hits? Who's releasing? Who are we promoting? And then after that, I pretty much said, screw it. And then I played whatever I was feeling. And that's what you do that too. You pick the songs that aren't the hits. You pick what you've been listening to, what's great. How long does it take you to curate those set lists? And do you have to run it by them, or it's just go with whatever?
I pretty much go whatever. I do a 2-hour show. So I pick 24 songs. every 5 songs, I'll do like a 2-minute break where I'll talk, go back to the next 5 songs, do another 2 minutes. And I do, so I do 5 breaks in the 2 hours and about maybe 10 minutes of talk and maybe less, 7 to 10 minutes of talking in between, and then play 24 songs. And it doesn't exactly have to be 2 hours. So it's somewhere right around there. I figured it out after a few weeks. It's about 24 songs and 7 to 10 minutes of talking, and that's a 2-hour show. But I play 5 songs before I go back and talk again. Because I know listening, I'm like, all right, just the DJ, all right, shut up. I just want to hear some music. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep it as brief as possible.
But that's got to be liberating, especially with the stories that you've had dealing with the program directors. Like, yo, man, don't say that. Don't get a quick whip. Now you can do basically whatever. That's the one thing I love about Sirius. Anybody can just rag and go.
That's why I took the gig, because I remember, the morning show I was on years ago. It was, I don't know, it was like, it wasn't soft. I don't know, I forget what it was, but it was like this kind of almost like elevator music or whatever, like just soft rock station or whatever. I forget, adult contemporary, maybe, or whatever was the format it was. And I remember trying to, like, I was playing like, goofy, like Phil Collins, Against All Odds and crummy stuff like that. And I remember I slipped in Aerosmith Dream On, and the program director's like, you can't play that song. I go, why? It's slow. You can't, that doesn't fit the format. I go, but everybody knows that song. That fits like adult contemporary. And he's like, no, don't ever play that again. Just play the songs that are in the system. My God, this sucks.
Everything that you do you have any other streams of income, if I could ask that? Like, you do have the podcast, you have the Patreon, you have the book, you have all these media outlets, but again, everybody always has something in their pocket just in case. Do you have another business that you had during the pandemic or started during the pandemic that's helped, or is everything just straight media, comedy, metal?
Yeah, I mean, plus you get royalties, from your stand-up, your between the albums getting played on the internet and Sirius XM. So you get that, between the comedy and the prank calls. So I'll get, and then if you do any film or TV stuff, you get residual checks every time they play it. It's not much. It depends on what kind of role you had in it. So you get that coming in. Then I got some investments. My brothers are all in the real estate. The one you talk to, my brother Bob, and then my other brother Joe, and his son. So I got investments in that stuff. So I don't know that stuff, but they like, no, this is a good investment. I go, okay, here you go. I have no clue. I'm like, I just write dick jokes. I don't know. So yeah, you always have to have a bunch of different streams coming in. And then I just want to be my own boss. I love being my own boss. I can do whatever I want. So if you got enough streams coming in, enough income coming in, you can do that. You can do that, which is great.
I was curious when I was talking to him. I was like, was he the one in the car with him when they were, going to the show and doing the rock and roll thing, the smoke bombs, the weed, the drinking? I was just like, I can't see this. This is too good.
Well, no, not him. He was more straight. He was always, he never drank. So he was great because he would always drive us. We needed a driver. But he would always go to shows. So I was always going with him. He was older than me. He was driving, taking me all these shows. So it was great. But yeah, I mean, he was a troublemaker in his own sense. But no, but it was great because him and my other brother Joe, like, they were 4 or 5 years older than me and just got me into all that music. I'd sit in the back seat of the car. They had the friggin', a power booster, and the stereo was super loud, and they would just be cranking AC/DC, Ted Nugent, Sabbath, and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, this is what I like. So, and they would take me to concerts. And once you go to a concert and see that live, like, oh my, when like you were saying before, I saw Bon Scott, it was 79, I guess it was. AC/DC opened up for Ted Nugent at Madison Square Garden, and Bon bringing Angus around on his shoulder, walking through the whole crowd. Highway to Hell just came out. It was insane.
That is such a good tour, such good set list. And again, man, just the concert resume you've amassed. You could write a book on that in itself. You ever get any like cool souvenirs other than like, because it's crazy. Every time I listen to your stories, the story keeps on upping. Like the chick at the Scorpions, she played you, but I had my own. I went to see Maiden at the Garden for the Book of Souls tour, and at the time, same thing. Never been laid, very shy. There's this beautiful black red. This girl had the most beautiful jet black hair. She was an artist. And I was like, oh, she can't be making too much money. She's like, yeah, I just bid a ticket. I bought my brother a first class ticket. I bought these tickets for $600. I was like, oh, she that type of artist. All right, bet. and at the end of the night, it just didn't pan out. So, like, what souvenirs do you have from these shows? Like, you ever get a set list that means a little bit more, or a pick that's like, no, this one's a little particularly more special?
I got a bunch of set lists. I was at Download in 2009 and Slipknot headline that I got their set list. They actually put that out on DVD. I got some decent set lists. I'm trying to think what I got. Nothing that really sticks out from a show where I got some kind of souvenir. You know, try to keep all the ticket stubs. I don't have them from back in the day. I must have got rid of them, which I'm pissed because that would have been great to have. Even though they used to rip the ticket like right in the middle. So if it was Ted Nugent featuring AC/DC, like they would just cut it right in the middle. I'm like, oh man, I remember those old stubs. It's like you couldn't just take the end off.
You did an interview with these girls that was so good, but you touched on the Four Agreements, that particular book. And I was curious because we do know, rest in peace to Mademoiselle, your ex had a bout with depression and she did kill herself. And you went through a PTSD period. You couldn't perform, couldn't eat, and you chose to hit it head on. You didn't even know you had PTSD, but you said, you know what, I have to face this. And what a lot of other people didn't know is, even though you drank, your vices really weren't drugs and alcohol, and I wouldn't even say women. You're always kind of a stern, like, let me get this going. So I was curious, when that book was introduced to you, was it the shaman? Was it somebody in group therapy? And how it helped you along the lines of that recovery process?
I can't remember how. It might have been, I can't remember how that came on my radar, but I remember someone telling me you got to go get this book called The Four Agreements. Then it was Eckhart Tolle, The Power Now was another book. Like I just remember, but I like The Four Agreements. Was simple. The Eckhart Tolle stuff was way out there. I lost interest, you know. But anyway, the Four Agreements was just great. It's like, don't take anything personally, which is great as a, you know, as a performer and stuff. You can't take it personally if someone doesn't like your act. Like it has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with them. It's not them. It's not, you know, or if they're coming after you or whatever like that, that's their thing, not yours. You have nothing to do with that. And then it was like, what's the other, I forgot, man. I haven't read the book in a while. It's actually on my table. I was going to go back and read it again, but it really helped me out because it's really simplifying. It's really simple. It's an easy read on just how to handle life and stuff like that. And just, you know, someone else like attacking you. It has nothing to do with you. It has all to do with them. They don't even know you. So don't take it personally. That was a big one. I forget the other four. I'm forgetting now because I haven't read it in a while, but it really helped me through some tough times, you know, to just, you know, you needed some positivity in your life at that point. So no, I still highly recommend that book. It's a good one.
And just thinking, because my mother came back from Kuwait and she's in the military. Big ups to U.S. Army. Thank you, everybody. And at the time, it doesn't seem like her PTS was in denial, but we could tell something was off, and then she was diagnosed. But I just remember she's always been a fighter, get things done right now. And talking to her like, hey, Mom, what happened over there? Oh, it wasn't so bad. You know, we had some, you know, planes fly over, you know, the very bare minimum. And then I talked to her other friend. I can't mention her name. But I'm talking to the major, and I'm like, hey, so I gave you a call. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My phone blew up overseas in Kuwait. Your mom didn't tell you? I'm like, what the fuck? Hold on. That is a totally different story than what I'm hearing. She's like 3 tenths down from her. So everybody deals with it differently. I was wondering what role that played in your recovery process. Were you using that to help you with your emotions? Was that something that you were like, you know what, I'm feeling crappy today, I have to listen to the song? Or was it just that was something that's like, yo, this is too painful, I need to walk away from music as well?
No, music definitely. I remember just being in high school because I moved from after sophomore year, my the whole family moved to Florida. So I went to that private Catholic school down there. Like I said, rich kids didn't know who Ozzy was. I was an outsider. I had no friends. It was a tough time, man, just leaving my friends back home that I grew up with and just being put in some private school where I didn't know anyone. No one, you know, it was a big clique. And I remember listening to Ozzy, like Diary of a Madman, the album, every day before I went to school, especially that song, Diary of a Madman, just to get me going to get to school because I was like, you know, I was in a funk. I hated it down there. I didn't want to be there. I didn't know anyone. I hated the school I was in, all that stuff. But that music got me through it. And then later on with, you know, specific songs when you're going through some shit in life, definitely, you know, I definitely put them on to just, you know, pump me up and go, listen, just listen to the words. You know, I remember that Motorhead song, Don't Let Them Bastards Grind You Down, was always a good one I used to always listen to. It was a good one. And then Shoot Me Again, I think, is a Metallica song off the St. Anger. Shoot Me Again, I Ain't Dead Yet. That was another one. There's a few Hatebreed songs too, which Hatebreed's like almost like a hardcore band, but they got, you know, Jamie Josta, the lead singer, writes some real positive lyrics. Mm-hmm. So like that stuff too. So you just pick specific songs to help get you through it. You know, really look, when you can get chills on your arm from listening to a song, you know that like you're into the music and stuff. That just happened to my kid the other day. We were watching something. Oh, Dave Grohl singing Times Like These at a big festival. We're watching old stuff after Taylor Hawkins died. My son likes the Foo Fighters, and we're watching like a Lollapalooza just, you know, over this, you know, a few months back, right before Taylor passed away, in front of 100,000 people. He walks out on stage and sings it with just by himself, no music or anything. And he's like, Dad, I got chills. I'm like, that's good. That means, you know, you really got into it. I like that because he does like music. So it's tough to get chills when you listen to Drake, you know, Grohl singing his heart out, like by himself, singing Times Like These with no backing band is you know, is great.
See, but that's the beauty of music. It connects. Even if you don't like Drake, I can understand why somebody else like Drake. I love my hip hop. I love my metal. I
don't think that cell phone song, Hit Me Up on My Cell Phone, is going to give me chills. I don't, you know, it'll give anyone chills.
After she passed away, you said you went through that trial of grieving. You saw the shaman, and then you met your ex-wife, and then you got together. And now that you guys aren't together, I'm wondering, what have you learned from this whole lesson? Because you did do the post like, hey, if you need help, get the help. But she's also saved me. Look at the family I have now. And even though it didn't work out, it seems that your son has focused you. You're saying now that you have the son, you spend your time more wisely. You know, I got to get this done now so I can spend time with him, or I can, you know, get the show going, or etc. Do you think that your life was culminating to all you really needed was a family to feel that you were settled and to have a grip on reality?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I look back at the whole lockdown. You know, it's like a lot of comics had a tough time with it, a super tough time. You know, their work got taken away and had really nothing. They were sitting in an apartment by themselves. I was so lucky I had a kid to bond with and spend even more time with. You know, and really, like, looking back now, I go, if I didn't have a kid, my life would be completely empty. I don't know what I would do. I love hanging out with him and stuff and having that other part of my life, you know, with him and doing stuff with him and, you know, playing baseball with him and going to his basketball games and all that stuff and hanging out with his, you know, friends' dads and stuff like that. So, you know, I never thought I wanted that, but it definitely helps and it fulfills your life without a doubt. I'm lucky. Like I said, man, if I was then got to go through this lockdown without a kid just hanging and watching movies, we're just watching old movies, just bonding even more, which is amazing. So
other than wrestling, like I sit back and I'm like, I know you're a lefty, but you could still try guitar. I'm always that guy to push people if there's something musically they like to give it a shot. You know, what did you guys get to bond over? Because your parenting style is a little different. It's unorthodox, but it does work. You know, you're giving him the tools like, hey, this is how you deal with people. This is how to act with people. And some people would disagree, like, hey, I wouldn't let my son cuss at that young age. It's like, hey, listen, he can cuss, but if he gets caught, he's in trouble. You know, it's a strange dynamic. I was wondering if you saw any examples along the lines of your parenting style and you tweaked it, or you saw somebody doing the exact same thing.
No, I just kind of just made it up along the way. I just said, no, this is fine. I know, you know, I'm like, what's the difference if he curses now or in 2 years? Let him know the words that are wrong and let him know the words that he can't say at school, but he could say in my house, you know, because he could get in trouble thinking he didn't know the word fuck was bad. And, you know, maybe he heard it in my house and I never talked to him about it. Then he says it in the class and he gets in a lot of trouble. So, you know, just know, yeah, this is what's, you know, this is part of life. This is what's going to happen. I explained it to him. He's way more advanced, I think, because of that, because of the way I'm raising him and just telling them that, you know, the rights and wrongs of society and what to do, what not to do, and just be careful. He knows about all the crazy stuff I did when I was a kid. I tell him, he's like, I can't believe you did that. I go, yeah, but you can't do that. I go, there's cameras everywhere, so you're going to get caught. I go, if there was cameras everywhere when I was young, I wouldn't have been doing that stuff either. I would have got caught all the time. I told him the other day, I go, just know there's cameras everywhere, except for if you're in the woods with your friends. So if you think you want to go do something that's going to be wrong, there's going to be video of it. So don't do it.
Thinking back now, I just love the fact that you, again, Patrice O'Neal and Joey Diaz, especially Joey Diaz, his reach, like if he never made it on The Longest Yard, every comic would still know him. He would still have his place cemented in comedy. And it's just this dynamic that they have. What do you think it is about your friend group? What do you think it is about you charismatically that connects with people?
I think it's just the honesty, you know, in your comedy. You talk about your life, you know, and then, you know, and same with Joey, you know, all the stories and stuff he tells. And so I think it's just people appreciate the honesty, and like we're a little out there and they wish they could be like that, live that kind of lifestyle, but they can't because of the job they have. So they can't really be that outrageous, but we can, because, you know, what's a comedy club going to say we can't work there? So there's, you know, if they do, there's another comedy club we can go to. So we have a lot more freedom to talk about our lives. And I think people are interested in that. I was always interested in that, you know, even when I listened to Howard Stern back in the day and Opie and Anthony, I was always fascinated, you know, and just the stuff that he would say and get away with on the radio. I was like, wow, that's awesome. And then Dice and all that stuff. So I think that's why people are attracted to the honesty. And just that, like, we don't care, like, whatever, we're not PC, and we don't, you know, have the Hollywood playbook. Okay, I got to say this. I got to say this now. I got to change. I got to say this. Or we're just like, nah, that's not for me, which is most of America.
And I feel like there's the stigma of somebody saying something on stage that people want to, for some reason, say that's who they are as a person. You know what I mean? You could say something outrageous on stage, and you might be thinking it, but, you know, you might not do a certain thing or really believe a certain concept. But people, I think Seth MacFarlane said it best. He's like, just because I make these jokes on Family Guy doesn't necessarily mean I'm a bad guy. It's a joke. So,
yeah.
Considering your career, again, all these accolades, everything you've done, what would be a career goal that you still want to attain, or are you just content? You got everything you want, and you're just going to ride this off into the sunset?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I pretty much, I don't know. I don't know if I have too many more goals. You know, I mean, I pretty much did everything. I'd rather just, you know, got a still nice career going this long. I'm happy for it, you know. Never thought I would get this far. So everything's cool. You know, it's like you know, it's almost better to fly under the radar, because if you're put in the public spotlight, like these guys that are at a whole other level, you know, there's always somebody trying to take you down, you know, and just, you know, embarrass you and take everything away from you. So if you did anything from your past or whatever, just digging into old tweets or something you said on a podcast. So it's like, to me, that's not even worth it, man. It's like, thank God that stuff wasn't going on when I was coming up in the early 2000s, going on Howard Stern, all that crazy stuff. And, you know, people love that stuff. So not so much anymore. So it's almost like I'm almost glad I got out, where I don't, if I was starting my career now, I wouldn't know what to do. So I'm like, this is just too, you know, everything's too restricted. You know, you really have to kiss ass and completely play the game to get anywhere. And I was like, I was never willing to do that.
Well, I don't know. You did say you'd eat ass, so I'm kind of like,
A whole different thing, yeah.
Who is somebody that you've taken under your wing? Because, again, you were so fortunate with the guys, you know, Dice and everybody. Was there somebody that you saw not being a dick? Like you say to your son, like, hey, don't be a dick, and somebody's going to help you. Somebody's going to see you're a good guy. Was there somebody that you saw like, hey, you know what, he's got something, and then you helped them in their career, or you pushed them in the right direction of even life? Not even like in the public eye as far as comedy or TV and entertainment.
No, I always like helping young, mostly probably comics. You know, I've always liked giving them, you know, that platform. I go, hey, man, you could come to open for me at the Improv, wherever. You'll be the feature act, and then make a connection there with the club, and maybe they'll have you come back and headline next time. Or at least you can come back and make it on your own. Just talk to me, hey, I'd love to come back. I go, so I'll open those doors for you, you know, and then you got to, you know, kind of follow through on it. because got like guys like Bob Levy and Rich Voss and all those other guys like that helped me in the beginning too, get me into these clubs. So I like doing it for younger comics too. I said, make sure you make that connection. I'll expose you to them. You know, Artie Lang did the same thing for me too, opening for him at these big like improvs and funny bones when I wasn't working them, the big clubs, and they go like, oh man, we want to have you here by yourself. I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. So that's why I did those gigs. So I always, you know, tell young comics, you know, put them up on stage, let them do, you know, I remember when Nikki Glazer first started doing comedy in St. Louis, I saw her one night and I was like, man, she's funny. She's really dark and edgy. And I always tell when I came to St. Louis, I go on stage and do like a guest set for 5 minutes. So I always tell the club owner, I go, she's funny, put her on stage. She's like, oh man, she's really dark and edgy. I go, yeah, but it's funny. Don't worry, she's good. You know, so, and she says that she always remembers that I always made sure that, you know, she can go on stage. Sometimes the local club, wherever you're from, they always treat you like shit. They think because you're local, you live around the corner, that you're not that good. So that always happens in every town. So, but no, I just like helping young comics out and just kind of give them a launch, and then, you know, find somebody else that maybe, you know, give them some exposure too.
With that said, especially because you got stories of like New York was rough, out west. I think it's Chicago you don't really get booked at. What's the toughest club you've ever been to that you got over at? Like it started rough, but you won them in the end. Or like some clubs that are a little tougher than others. Because I know Jersey and Philly, times are a little different now. They don't like heckling. They don't like people being smart alecks. And I understand because people take it too far. It's not like the quick whips. But what's a place, especially back in the day, you're like, oh, I'm gonna win you over. You're gonna see something today.
Los Angeles was always tough in the beginning. Those crowds were so politically correct, and you had to be high energy and likable, and then, you know, not, you know, edgy and complaining and, you know, angry. They didn't like that style of comedy until like, you know, Joey Diaz and Joe Rogan and those guys started, you know, taking over the Comedy Store. And then all of a sudden when I went back there, I'm like, oh, it's a lot easier now because they like that kind of comedy. But for a while when I would go to LA, I'd have a tough time winning them over. You know, so, you know, so that was always tough. That was always a challenge. But then, like I said, it turned when all those guys started doing the Comedy Store. I'm like, good, you know, brought some dirty and edgy comedy back, and didn't have to be a pretty boy up there and physical and just go up there and tell jokes.
Fascinating. I love studying, not so much doing the comedy aspect, but studying your guys' craft. It's amazing. Hey, I wanted to do a quick game because being the metal fans that we are, loving these bands, I'm going to spew off a band, and you got to give me a quick whip. It can't be thought about. It has to be something off the top of your head about your favorite song or songs by the band. Clutch.
It's a speed round. I'm trying to think of the Earth Rocker. You know, I was always kind of like Clutch, but then when that album came out, phenomenal.
AC/DC.
Gone Shooting.
Ooh,
Power Ridge.
That's a good one. You know what? I love Power Age, but Let There Be Rock gets a little bit more from me. It's just dirtier.
It is, but they have too many hits on there. Power Age hardly has any hits.
You know what? I would assume Power Age did, because like I think of songs like Overdose, and almost like if you're a casual fan, nobody knows Overdose. So it's like, and I'm like,
Overdose and Dog Eat Dog are two phenomenal, underrated. But then they put Problem Child on that record, and it was on Dirty Deeds. Yeah. There's all this stuff. No, Power just great. I mean, it's really, that just took the sound on that album is phenomenal compared to High Voltage and Dirty Deeds that were before it. But Power is my favorite AC/DC record. There's just so many gems on there.
Give Me a Bullet to Bite On.
Oh, phenomenal.
Down Nation.
Down Payment Blues, the lyrics in that song. That was another one I always listened to doing comedy when I was broke. You know, Long Way to the Top, If You Want to Rock and Roll. Bomb wrote so many songs about being broke and trying to make it.
I always play Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire.
Ain't no fun waiting around to be a millionaire. Phenomenal.
Oh my God. We're going to screw the speed round. Let's just talk about the bands. Motorhead. Favorite Motorhead song?
I'm going to go Love Me Like a Reptile off Ace of Spades.
It's a great one. I Got Killed by Death, man. Especially the live version at Wacken.
Right.
That, I don't know what it is about that solo, the feel. It's just, I didn't even know it was about like getting laid. I thought he was like literally fighting death. He's like, hey, I'm still here. Maiden. Maiden, big band for us.
Where Eagles Dare.
Ooh.
Opening track off A Piece of Mind. The drums in that friggin' song are just phenomenal. There's hardly any lyrics. It's almost an instrumental, that song. It's so good.
Do you like the newer stuff? Do you like Book of Souls? Do you like Zenjutsu?
It's good, but it's just really long. It's really, really, I mean, 18-minute songs, 11-minute songs, 8-minute songs.
See, I feel like I have ADD a little bit, so I think that caters more to like I like the fact that they're dragging it out a little bit more. It helps me pay attention, I'm guessing, especially when I'm learning the songs on guitar.
No, I look, they're still great records. I mean, but yeah, they're a little long, the songs.
That's fair. Machine Head.
The Blackening is when I really get into them. I remember it Burn My Eyes when it first came out. I'm like, this is great. Then I kind of didn't get into them for a while, but when The Blackening came out, that whole record, I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Boston.
Hitch a Ride.
Oh, you knew that right off the bat.
Oh yeah, no, that first Boston record is a masterpiece. There's not one bad song on there. I listen to that like every few months. I'll put that on from the beginning to end.
Yeah, it's like Van Halen 1. It's like every song's just a hitter.
It's unbelievable, that record, that first Boston.
All right, our boys in Priest.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go. You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise.
It's a good one.
Off of British Steel, Steeler, Metal Gods. I mean, that record's a masterpiece. Scream for Vengeance, also Unleashed in the East.
It doesn't bother you? Because I know you read the autobiography too, about how his vocals gave out and he had to redo the vocals for the live tracks.
By the time I heard that, it didn't matter anymore. Like, yeah, I'm okay with it. I heard that with Speak of the Devil, the Ozzy live album. He did that in the studio too. Yeah. The vocals on that too. So now it doesn't. It would have bothered me at first. Fear Factory, I like Fear Factory. They put a record out a few years ago and they used a drum machine. I'm like, I can't listen to it because I knew it was a drum machine. Because I used to love the drumming in Fear Factory. So that turned me off when they used a drum machine. But no, I don't care that it was re-recorded.
Did that metal purism, like when I was growing up, like I could not listen to Christian music unless it was like worship music. I was like, anybody that's trying to do rock with Christianity, anybody's trying to do rap with Christianity, or even pop songs. I'll admit I like the Backstreet Boys growing up, but we're talking more poppier tunes. I was like, nah, that's not me. But now that I'm older, like I just saw Steel Panther, and man, do I owe them an apology. I owe my buddy Scott from high school an apology. They kick ass, man. They're
amazing. They're great, Steel Panther. I've been seeing them for years. I used to see them on the Sunset Strip on Monday nights. They'd play every Monday night. The place was packed. No, I was into Stryper back in the day. I still like them. I still see them. I do the Monster Rock Cruise. They're on there. Michael Sweet's a great dude. But no, Soldiers Under Command and their first EP, I forget what that was, the Yellow and Black Attack. And even To Hell with the Devil was pretty good. Those three albums I liked a lot. I saw them in concert. I didn't catch a Bible when they were throwing them out, but I didn't mind it because I liked Slayer and then I liked Stryper. I didn't mind the lyrics, whatever they were doing. I didn't mind. I just liked the band.
Yeah, man. That's again back to the beauty of music, because back to a Slayer show. So as bad of a Christian as I am, me and my buddy were in line and we had somebody she was chanting something, and we didn't know what she was chanting, but she was doing the cross. So the lady next to her, she said something back to her. I was like, what's she doing? She was like, oh, she was blessing us. So of course the guys up front are like, oh, hail Satan, blah, 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 when they found that out. But then we started talking. She's like, well, I'm Catholic. Oh, I'm Christian. And then the guy behind me happened to be Muslim. And I was like, that's crazy because my boss is here. He's Jewish. And it's like, you got this great culmination of religions. I think people don't get it. It's a story,
Yeah.
It's like a death metal satanic band, which there's not that many few I won't listen to. I think Mayhem's the only band I'm like, that's too dark. Too much is happening in that particular sect.
Yeah.
You said, we'll get back to the bands, but you did say that you don't believe Jimmy Paige buying Aleister Crowley's place had anything to do with like the slew of bad luck that they had at the end of their career. Do you feel like that's still like there was no spiritualism with that, or do you feel like maybe it was just them going a little too hard because they were at the top of?
I mean, they were the biggest band in the world, so how much bad luck did they have? John Bonham died. That was awful. But Taylor Hawkins just died from the Foo Fighters. Cliff Burton died from Metallica. Randy Rhodes. So that happens. So they just never got back together after that. They would have still been just as huge if they got another drummer to fill in. They still would have been doing stadiums. They just decided to retire at that point. Mm. So I don't know. You can't really say they're bad luck when they're selling like 3 shows out at Shea Stadium, in 1977, doing 10 nights at Madison Square Garden. Yeah, little things happen, but that's the rock star life. It's a crazy life, and stuff's going to happen when you're on a road, and this and that, and the drinking and the drugs and all that stuff. No, I still don't believe it.
That is a great way to put it. That really just went over my head, but the way you put it really put it in perspective. Like, there was a lot more good than bad happening at the time.
Way more good than bad, Yeah, absolutely. And you just, like I said, if they would have replaced Bonham, maybe waited a year, they'd have still been just as big. Bonham was that would have been a huge piece missing from the band, but people would have moved on. They know he died, so there's nothing else they could do. Look what happened with AC/DC. If AC/DC would have stopped after Bon died, but they didn't, and it became bigger.
But they got lucky too. I don't know. Listening him in Geordie, and then listening him to AC/DC, I was like, yo, what sparked your mind to go that pitch and go kick it up? Because I do like the Geordie stuff he did. Goodbye Love is my favorite Geordie song with them. It was really, really sweet. Yeah. But Plasmatics, Wendy O, what's your favorite song about them?
Children of the Damned. The Coupe d'Etat album is just an unbelievable metal record. The earlier stuff was punk. It was all over the place. But there was like 2 or 3 albums that they put on, and when some of Wendy O's solo stuff too. Just too bad that she just had depression issues, and
yeah,
she decided to do what she did, because she would have been a huge again. Like, she had a downtime, and it just she was out of the public eye. That music wasn't in, but it would have came back. It really would have, and she would have been a superstar if she would have just hung in there. But I guess she just couldn't. But I always liked the Plasmatics. I saw them live. I saw Wendy O live, and it was great.
She was different, man, and it was good. It was good. Stones.
Waiting on a Friend.
Okay. I like what's the one? Let's see, that's my favorite song, and I can't even say. I can hear the riff so easily. Between a Rock and a Hard Place. That's my favorite Stones tune.
That's a later one. That's off of, I forget which one. Maybe something Lounge or whatever. Yeah, but no, I never was a huge Stones guy, but my older brother is totally into the Stones. I started getting into them later on. I remember the Some Girls record. That's my favorite Stones record. That record's great. Far Away Eyes, Just My Imagination, great stuff on there. But Waiting on a Friend is phenomenal.
I got Let It Bleed. That's my favorite Stones.
That's a good one too. Yeah.
Rollins, Henry Rollins.
Never really got into one.
Oh man.
Not that I don't like them. I just kind of was off my radar. There's some bands that happen like that. Then Lizzy was off my radar my whole life until the last 10 years. And it's just like, even Clutch was until they put out Earth Rocker. But Rollins, I just never got into.
Oh my God. He has this song, What's the Matter, Man? That is, if you need to kick someone's ass, you're going to get pumped. If you need to go out swinging, that is the tune.
Yeah.
No, I understand. Certain bands, like Mastodon was under my radar for a long time. And my buddy was into them before they made it big with Show Yourself. So that's great. Rage. We got to do Rage. I can't wait to see Rage this summer.
I'm going to see him at least 2 times at the Garden, maybe 3.
Which day? Because I think I'm going Sunday.
No, I'm going to Tuesday and the Thursday.
It's one of those days. I can't remember which one specifically, but I remember I spent the money. I was just like, forget it. It's the only time I'm going to see Rage anytime soon. That's like the last band I have to see. I've seen everybody else.
Oh, yeah, I saw him back in the day. Know Your Enemy is my favorite Rage song. When they play that live, it's insane.
Did you see him with Maynard? Would Maynard do that part where he's like, I got no patience? Or did you? No.
Why? I mean, I know he did it, but I didn't see it live. I didn't see him live with Maynard doing that. But that song, I mean, every song, the mosh pit's going to be insane. I'm going to take my kid because he likes Rage. I'm like, you have to see Rage once.
Man, Guerrilla Radio, I got to go with that one. That's
right one.
That's just the one. Rose Tattoo.
Man, that's a tough one because Probably. So man, probably Branded. It's off of Scarred for Life album.
I'm gonna check Branded out.
Yeah, Branded, it's called.
That's gonna be a new one. Van Halen. Diamond Dave era.
Of course. DOA, Dead or Alive.
Really?
Or Bottoms Up. I love that Van Halen 2 record. For some reason, it's got a special place in my heart. I mean, the first one's a classic, obviously, and then Women and Children first, but that Van Halen 2, I don't know. Except for You're No Good. I don't know why they opened the album with that cover song of Linda Ronstadt. It just doesn't make sense.
I feel, I don't know, because that was the one that dragged me into Van Halen 2. Because I heard Somebody Get Me a Doctor, so I bought it, and then every time No Good was just that one song. I was like, all right, let's do this. But Lighting Up the Sky off 2 is my favorite. But
Lighting Up the Sky is phenomenal. I know. Somebody Get Me a Doctor, like you said. Even Beautiful Girls. Women in Love is a great song.
Unchained's on it.
Unchained's on Fair Warning.
Fair Warning's pretty great too.
Yeah.
It seemed weird just because of the cover art, but I'm like, this is straight Van Halen. There's no question. To finish it off, last one, my man, we got Metallica.
Disposable Heroes.
Okay. Master of Puppets. I gotta go Creeping Death. Creeping Death is just every time it hits. You know what? Let me ask you this. Sabbath. Sabbath would probably be a good one too. It has to be Dio and Ozzy versions.
Thrill of It All off of Sabotage. And what, a Dio song?
Yeah, or just a Dio with Sabbath or without Sabbath, or hell, go back to Rainbow, because Kill the King is still...
Kill the King's great. Yeah, probably Kill the King, but Dio with Sabbath, I would go... There's great songs off. I mean, Heaven and Hell is a masterpiece. Walk Away is a great Dio Sabbath song, a rare one.
Was that
Die Young is another phenomenal song off of Heaven and Hell.
I don't know why that song's not more popular.
I know.
That is honestly, I know other riffs are heavier, but that's probably the best riff he's come up with. Like, it should appeal to everybody.
It's great.
But Bible, you ever hear Bible Black?
Yeah, that's
a rough tune, but
that's a good one too.
I always end these interviews with, what's the best piece of advice somebody's given you? There's something somebody said to you a long time ago that it could have been stupid, it could have been funny, it could be dead serious, but they said it, and for some reason it's something that always is in the back of your mind. It's right there, and it's been kind of a guide for you going through life. Do you have anything that comes to mind readily when it comes to something like that?
I remember the first night I met Dime Bag, he came to my comedy show, him and Vinny, and it was when he was doing the Damage Plan band after Pantera. Mm-hmm. And they came out, we went to a strip club, and we're hanging out, and he took me upstairs, and we're just hanging, talking about life and stuff. He goes, listen, man, he goes, we're trying to get this band off the ground, Damage Plan. He goes, just remember this, man, you're a performer. It don't matter if you're playing in front of 5 people or 100,000 people. Those people paid to see you. Give them a show. And I always remember that, because you see a comic that sees 10 people in the crowd and they go, oh man, I don't want to do this. There's 10 people here, and they mail it in. They don't give a shit. That's when I'll do like an hour and a half on stage. People are like, I can't believe you did that. I go, yeah, I don't care how many people are here. I don't care if there's 5 people, then I'll do 5 people. And, you pretend like it's a full house. He goes, they paid for that ticket. Remember that. So that always stuck with me.
Good, sir. Thank you for your time. Oh, my God. Guys, when I tell you, watching this guy growing up, thinking how cool he was, watching that metal show, seeing him on MTV and interviewing all these idols, even seeing him at WMMR, place that's my alma mater, it is just a great thing to connect with people that they're in your neighborhood, man. So, Jim, thank you so much. Guys, don't forget, check out Jim. He's got his website, jimflorentine.com. Go to his YouTube. Check out Bite the Bullet. Go see him this Saturday at Vineland, New Jersey. He's at the Landis Theater, and he's promoting his Princeton dates, 24th and 25th. Check it out online and the rest of his tour. And, guys, most importantly, show your love, show your support. Jim, sir, golly, It has been a blessing. It has been an honor. Allow me to bow before you, and thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. I'll see you Saturday night if you can make the show.
I will see you Saturday. Everybody else, be smart, be mindful, and God bless you. Stay tuned. Oh, Ninja out. But no, sir, sincerely, my God, thank you so much. Again, just watching you, Special Ed, you know, all that stuff everybody brings up, same thing for me. I truly appreciate that time.
No, I appreciate that, man. You have some good questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to see, I was trying to condense it because, man, you had some questions for David Roth. I'm like, damn, how do you construct your interviews is what I wanted to ask, because, you know, sometimes you already know it, so you can just go off without writing anything, and then other times you have to do your research. You know, I was always curious.
Well, I knew everything about David Lee Roth. I didn't even have to do any research. These are just questions that I always wanted to ask him. So I always did that with that metal show too. It's like we interviewed Angus and Brian Johnson the first season, I think, and I was like, all right, I've been wanting to ask these guys these questions for a long time. So.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.